This is nothing short of a monumental, historical, and biblical covert operation everyone has been witnessing, and I'm glad to have played a small part in it while active duty 2012-2015 and still a part of the fight beyond my service. This isn't about being right or wrong. This is military law, military regulations, military symbolism, military optics, military codes, military customs, military etiquette. The Constitution comes a close second. Military can act without Congress and anyone. Our founders made that clear in the UCMJ and Constitution. If all of the below, which visually happened in front of everyone, isn't completed, it will be the equivalent to all soldiers dying on the missions, dying in vain. And that isn't going to happen. The only service members who can reveal this to you are us veterans. Anyone on active duty, National Guard, or reserve components, are sworn under oath and would be a threat to national security, and can face courts-martial for treason for revealing missions, as they are detrimental to those missions being run all over the world. Yeah, this is that monumental and historical. Here's Military Tribunal's Law Guide, 772 pages via defense.government, percent 20,190,108. PDF. VIR equals 2019-01-11-115724-610. You have already witnessed quite a bit and just didn't know what you were seeing and viewing. The saying, "You can't see the forest for the trees," equals 99% of Americans right now who think Biden is president. Once again, this is just one small piece of military and constitutional laws and orders that outlines what took place right in front of everyone from January 20, 2017, to January 20, 2021. Different from any other time in United States history that shows this covert operation to restore the republic, and Donald Trump is still president due to military law, Uniform Code of Military Justice, and constitutional law. Military and civilian are two separate laws. Commander-in-Chief equals the Uniform Code of Military Justice. President equals federal and civilian laws. The president is not president over the military. The commander-in-chief is not CIC over civilians. Oh, but I wish it was. These piss-poor, arrogant, condescending, privileged, spoiled attitudes would have been cleaned up years ago. Let's go Americans down finger. The general misconception is that any statute passed by legislators bearing the appearance of law constitutes the law of the land. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any statute, to be valid, must be in agreement. It is impossible for a law which violates the Constitution to be valid. This is succinctly stated as follows: all laws which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. Marbury v. Madison 1803, 5 U.S. 2 Cranch, 137, 174, 176. President Trump signed the most monumental Executive Order 13,848 in United States history on September 12, 2018. Inside 4 major events were outlined. 1. Declared a national emergency. By federal law, national emergencies must be addressed by Congress. It was not addressed. COVID-19 was not mentioned until February 4, 2020, at the State of the Union address, first by President Trump. So, how did he know to issue a national emergency in September 2018 to activate on November 3, 2020? National emergencies defined. HAP 34 Subchapter Sec 1622.htm. War and National Defense. AP 34 Subchapter Sec 1622.pdf. 2. Declared maritime law. He specifically put the date of November 3, 2020, as the activation date of maritime law on September 12, 2018. If there's no such thing as voter fraud, which first became a topic in the news in December 2020, then how did President Trump know to put the specific date of November 3, 2020, inside the September 2018 executive order? #militaryintel. Do you wonder why there's shortages everywhere? Maritime law equals the law of the water. Maritime law is why no foreign goods will enter the United States as specified in the 13,848 order, hence why the ships are guarded at the port cities and crates have not been delivered to warehouses. Executive orders equals automatic law. All it takes is a little reading. Admiralty Maritime Law Explained. Chapter 1, Title 33 Code of Federal Regulations, Department of Homeland Security. Convention of the High Seas. National Ocean Service. 3 and 4. The Election Fraud Committee and Secretary of State. President Trump specifically put the dates of activation in which they would report. 45 days after November 3, 2020, which was January 5, 2021, and 45 days after that, which is March 3, 2021. The International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which is a United States federal law authorizing the President to regulate international commerce after declaring a national emergency in response to any unusual and extraordinary threat to the United States which has its source in whole or substantial part outside the United States. IEEPA at Congress. IEEPA Wiki. It further authorizes the President, after such a declaration, to block transactions and freeze assets to deal with the threat. In the event of an actual attack on the United States, the President can also confiscate property connected with a country, group, or person that aided in the attack. The IEEPA falls under the provisions of the National Emergencies Act, NEA, which means that an emergency declared under the Act must be renewed annually to remain in effect. National Emergencies Act. The Act empowers the President to activate special powers during a crisis but imposes certain procedural formalities when invoking such powers. The perceived need for the law arose from the scope and number of laws granting special powers to the executive in times of national emergency. Congress can terminate an emergency declaration with a joint resolution enacted into law. NEA Congress. NEA Wiki. Notice this clause. Emergency declared under the Act must be renewed annually to remain in effect. The whole reason a national emergency was issued was due to foreign interference with elections. Layman's for Hillary did not dump enough votes and Biden dumped too many. Why would Biden extend this executive order as he did last September 9, 2021? That's going to damn his administration. The deadline is September 11, 2022. One of two things must happen. Either the evil players must own up to all of the hundreds of years of corruption via money laundering, rigged riots, corporate wars, rigged wars, trafficking, and COVID as a biochemical weapon. Or admit the election was rigged and stolen via cyber warfare. Whichever plea bargain they took in October 2016, they will still meet the punishment for the level of their corruption at Gitmo. It will just determine if they show the public or not based on what each evil player chose. President Trump and FEMA declared 2 more national emergencies in 2020 that were also never addressed by that Congress. Via the Stafford Act. And the National Emergencies Act. National Emergencies Act Wiki explained. Powers of the President. Where's of the President? Which is why on November 3, 2020, President Trump issued a presidential emergency, known as a PEAD, a Presidential Emergency Active Document. The only people who can know what's in that document are the President and military generals. However, based on the law and order from 2017 up to that date along with military regulations, optics, symbolism, and visual operations, a veteran or person like myself can tell you what's in that document based on those up to that day. Here's how down finger. President Trump signed the National Quantum Act on December 21, 2018. Then signed Executive Order 13,885, 14 pages, called the National Quantum Initiative on August 30, 2019, which is displayed in the About section on the government site quantum.gov, launched in September 2021. 17 of the 21 agencies of the National Quantum Initiative are military organizations. Executive Order 13,885. ONO Quantum Initiative Advisory Committee. National Quantum Act. Military agencies on quantum.gov. The mainstream media started calling veterans and people like me conspiracy theorists and con owners. And our posts come from the Q. I guess so. An active government site with a Q in it, open mouth smile. President Trump ended the Air Force military space program and established the Independent Space Force in December 2019. Due to the above and all law and order from January 20, 2017, the activation of those 4 bullets in Executive Order 13,848 with the key bullet, Maritime Law, on November 3, 2020, and the PEAD signed that day. No president was legally confirmed on January 6, 2021, and did not have to be, because of the unaddressed national emergencies from 2018 and 2020, Presidential Enhancement Act of 2019-2020, the Presidential Emergency Active Document, the invoking of the Insurrection Act of 1807, which are all 47 U.S. Code 606 titled War Powers of the President. On Election Day, November 3, 2020, 4-star General Nakasone tweeted, as tens of millions of people head to the polls, at us_Cybercom and at NCGov teams around the world are fully engaged, working hard with our partners to defend our elections. We took what we learned from 2018, and brought it to an entirely new level for elections 2020. US_Cybercom equals United States Cyber Command NSA equals National Security Agency. Took, equals past tense for that present day. Around the world, equals why do we need teams around the world for the election in the US? Who was the president in 2018? When was the Independent Space Force established? When was the Quantum Information System established? Remember, Russia collusion, which was all a lie and scam. Remember the fake Russian dossier. What did we learn from 2018? All of these brilliant orders and laws were written before COVID-19, before November 3, 2020, Election Day, and before January 6, 2021, etc. Imagine that. Now reread the 4-star general's tweet again and the optics. Let it sink in. The origin and foundation of our nation all came in this order. The Army, military law, Navy, Marines, military regulations, military symbolism, the Declaration of Independence, the flag, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Marbury vs. Madison. A little military history for you. The very first military branch was founded June 14, 1775, the United States Army. The Revolutionary War started April 19, 1775. The founders fought 2 months before establishing the nation's first branch of military as they stated, "We need a swift army on the ground and army on the water." The Navy was founded shortly after on October 13, 1775, then the Marines, November 10, 1775. The Uniform Code of Military Justice aka Military Law was passed on June 30, 1775. With 69 articles of war to govern the conduct of the Continental Army. There's absolutely no coincidence the United States flag was sworn into Congress, June 14, 1777. No coincidence that 50 days later, the first United States flag ever flown, took flight at Fort Stanwix aka Fort Schuyler, at that time, on August 3, 1777, and 3 days later, was in one of the bloodiest battles in the Revolutionary War during the Saratoga Campaign which started in June 1777. No coincidence Fort Schuyler is now the Fort Schuyler Maritime College. At the Battle of Baltimore in 1814, Major George Armistead ordered, a flag so large that the British would have no difficulty seeing it from a distance. It measured 42 feet times 30, and was known as the Great Garrison Flag, and the Star-Spangled Banner Flag. The resistance of Baltimore's Fort McHenry during bombardment by the Royal Navy inspired Francis Scott Key to compose the poem, Defense of Fort McHenry, which later became the lyrics for The Star-Spangled Banner. So, choosing to kneel or sit down, not taking your hat off, or putting your hand over your heart, is a disgrace to all service members, but especially those who gave their life for you to live yours. The United States flag represents the military first. Not the states. Any service member, active or veteran status, who tries to misconstrue or twist the Constitution to fit their personal narrative is a prime example of someone who had no clue why they served this great country. Service members benefit from steady salaries, housing, medical benefits, dental benefits, college benefits not just for themselves, but spouses and children. All supposed to be secondary to this nation and Americans, and a privilege. The average ASVAB military entrance exam score for all branches is 31 to 36. Anything above a 50 with a minimum GT score of 110 is the upper echelon of military. Guess who was in the latter? Bullseye. And that's also why the military and President Trump passed Executive Order 13958, titled the 1776 Commission, is to not only restore the Republic, but also make the education of our history, origin, and foundation center of this nation and the military as well. It's an atrocity and disgrace to all of the soldiers who gave all, paying the ultimate sacrifice, and to those of us who live and breathe our nation's origin and history, preserving and passing those forward to those who understand all of what it takes to keep the United States what they were originated to be. No more soldiers misconstruing and butchering our nation's history and origin to family members and civilians. They will understand and know the history of the military, their branch, our nation amongst many others listed above. America is an idea. It's not just a slogan or papers in the Smithsonian. It came via people like me and those I know who served for the right intentions and love this nation. The only way to change it is Molin Labe from us. Congress and the media for many years, all have misconstrued and twisted the origin, history, and the contexts of the Declaration of Independence, the flag, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, forgetting Marbury versus Madison 1803. And have used reverse psychology on people to create chaos and division to fit their narratives and personal agendas, thanks to the Corporation of 1871. Their motto was, create a problem there's already a solution to. They died November 8, 2016. And because data shows, 70% of Americans know nothing about the Constitution, many hear a congressman quote from it. And majority of Americans don't know the truth from untruth, because they simply won't read or research and or listen to the wrong people who have nothing but personal agendas and twist, deceive, and misconstrue to fulfill those agendas. No wonder why veterans like me get ignored, shunned, laughed at, ridiculed and scorned. But bring it on, baby. Somebody's got to stand for military and constitutional laws and orders, regulations, symbols, codes, and history. I've already been in those boots. Our founders were common people. Brilliant, but common. Common meaning Congress was not a full-time career as it has been. They wrote all pieces of our foundation where the commoner could read, understand and comprehend. Not to be reversed, misconstrued, and misused 246 years down the road. Thank God there's some of us left who read, study, understand, serve and fight for the right reasons. For the true origin and foundation and for all of humanity. Not select groups and select issues, only. That's why it pays to know your history and veterans who know military history, military law, regulations, symbolism, and the origin of where and how they came. It's very important soldiers understand and know why they serve. Our resume comes second and is a privilege behind the Americans we serve. The oath of enlistment specifically says, I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Title 10, U.S. Code, Act of 5 May 1960 replacing the wording first adopted in 1789. With amendment effective 5 October 1962. Solemnly definition equals serious and dignified. Military.com. From the oath, you can see that you will be defending the Constitution, not a person. Discipline and accepting orders is sworn to. Finally, you vow to face the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, should any disputes arise. Military.com Oaths and Meanings. Which is also why no National Guard soldier would turn their backs on any president that's a legal president. That's military regulation, orders, and etiquette to Commander-in-Chief. That's equivalent to not saluting or going to the position of attention to any officer. Media shows National Guard troops with their backs to the Biden motorcade. National Guard with backs turned. None of that matters because Biden was not inaugurated. Rewind. There's only one person who can activate the National Guard to federal duty. That's the President of the United States. 10 United States Code 12406, Armed Forces. B. Title Party Chap 1211 Sec 12406.pdf. 3. The President is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. The President may call into federal service members and units of the National Guard of any state in such numbers as he considers necessary to repel the invasion, suppress the rebellion, or execute those laws. Orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of the states or, in the case of the District of Columbia, through the Commanding General of the National Guard of the District of Columbia. President Trump put into his September 12, 2018, executive order, a national emergency that went unaddressed, violation of Congress and law, and the activation of maritime law on November 3, 2020. How did he know to put those with the date of November 3, 2020, to activate in an executive order automatic law, in September 2018? Additionally, on April 30, 2020, President Trump signed Executive Order 13919 giving the Secretary of Defense authorization to make approvals to activate reserve components of the military to active duty. Executive Order 13919. D. Reserve of the Armed Forces to active duty. On January 6, Defense Secretary Christopher Miller approved up to 6,200 troops to support civil authorities in the District of Columbia for up to 31 days under Title 32, 502F authority. The activation of the National Guard to federal duty signified the invoking of the Insurrection Act of 1807. The soldiers did not arrive in D.C. until January 17, 2021. If they were there for the inauguration, then why did they stay until March 3? March 3, the day before the original inauguration date in United States history. March 4, optics. The President also has full and direct control of the United States Marines, via Marine Law of 1834, as it reads, can be used for other duties as the President may direct. The District of Columbia National Guard is the only National Guard that reports only to the President. It's the first to respond to our nation's capital. District of Columbia National Guard. UMBIA %20 National %20 Guard %20 Fact %20 Sheet %2008.06.2019. PDF. So why did 30,000 plus National Guard and Reserve troops come from multiple states to D.C.? See, if you aren't paying attention to origin and current events, you get behind. This article right here is January 2022. And makes readers think, Biden is activating troops. National Guard deployed. VidSurge 1,669,109. Announced deployment of 720 soldiers to the more than 23,000 currently deployed, open mouth smile. How come you didn't hear about those 23,000 being federally activated? You did. President Donald John Trump on January 6, 2021. And January 17, 2021. He gave those orders via the highest law in the land and via war powers extensions. Therefore, he is the only one who can rescind those orders. In military terms, D.C. is a foreign territory, which means they were federally activated by the President. The U.S. Constitution provides for a federal district under the exclusive jurisdiction of Congress. The district is therefore not a part of any U.S. state, nor is it one itself. The United States became a corporation by U.S. law in 1871, Stoutenberg v. Hennick, 129 U.S. 141, via the Treaty of 1871. Stoutenberg v. Hennick, 129 U.S. 141. Seat of Government Doctrine and Practice. Code of the District of Columbia Corporation. The District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871 is an act of Congress that repealed the individual charters of the cities of Washington and Georgetown and established a new territorial government for the whole District of Columbia. The seal of the District of Columbia features the date 1871, recognizing the year the district's government was incorporated. Seal of the District of Columbia. The inauguration. Do you know the reason former presidents attend the inauguration? To hand over the nuclear football. Where was President Donald Trump on January 20? The military is very keen on our flag and ceremonies. And because of that, it was President Trump who received the constitutional and military regulated inauguration. Receiving a 21-gun salute by the official Presidential Salute Battery known as the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment Division aka the Old Guard. Official, Hail to the Chief, by the marching band, a red carpet rollout, with 17 gold-fringed flags, and left on Air Force One number 28,000 with the nuclear football. The official Presidential Salute Battery who gave President Trump the 21-gun salute. The motto of the battery, the highest honor, has a dual meaning. First, it refers to the 21-gun salute commonly fired by the PSB. It is universally recognized as the highest military honor that can be rendered. Presidential Salute Battery. It's also regulation to accompany a 21-gun salute with, Hail to the Chief, as President Trump received to kick off the full military regulated and constitutional inauguration. As well as the United States Air Force Band. Watch President Trump's 2017 inauguration first where you can watch, see, and hear the same regulation inauguration. President Trump's 2017 inauguration 21-gun salute. Now read the importance of rounds fired. Read page 2. Guns vary from 5 to 21. Number of guns equals rounds fired. 21 is the highest honor. C-SPAN President Trump receives 21-gun salute. IV equals. Now watch the January 20, 2021, inauguration via military regulations and the Constitution. The actual inauguration January 20, 2021, President Trump. Biden, was given a military regulation funeral service at the tomb of the unknown soldier. He received 13 fired rounds, not a salute, by a 3-volley salute. Before they arrived at the tomb of the unknown, at the Capitol building, there was 0 presidential salute battery playing of, Hail to the Chief, which is the inaugural theme for the president. The only, Hail to the Chief, performed all day, January 20, 2021, was at Joint Andrews Base for President Donald Trump. At 6 hours 58 minutes and 25 seconds in the first video, below, of the whole January 20, 2021, Capitol to military funeral. Honors March 1st, was played by the non-regulated fake uniforms which is the song played for the 13 rounds fired for the minister resident as you'll read below. The Marine Band, the president's own, is to perform, Hail to the Chief. There was 0 Marine Band, the president's own, playing, Hail to the Chief. The only song played at the funeral service for Josephine Biden was, Honors March 1. Nowhere on the Marine Band's official YouTube page is there any ceremony on January 20, 2021. Marine Band, the President's Own, YT page. CBS pictures on Inauguration Day showed the Marine Band, but did not show them live. It was a picture that was taken inside a building. CBS pictures from Inauguration Day. What's even more hilarious, on the same CBS link, they show this Marine soldier practicing. The Marines' regulation uniform is not a BDU pattern as this soldier is shown wearing. The last time the military wore BDU was as follows. United States Army, 1981-2008 United States Navy, 1981-2012 United States Air Force, 1981-2011 drum roll. United States Marines, 1981-2005. Truly unbelievable why nobody will listen to us veterans showing you all of these regulations plus military law. From the ruthless heart of a veteran who loves this country. Americans are all kinds of F-ed up. Here's CBS with their title, U.S. Army Band Member. This is a non-regulation uniform. In layman's terms that means fake. All it takes is knowing a vet or a little research. Notice on the flag, it says, Pershing's Own. Google that, Pershing's Own. That's the United States Army Band. Here's their regulation uniforms. Don't hand any veteran some BS line about it being cold that day. And that's an overcoat. Regulation uniforms are regulation uniforms. They're orders. We are told what uniforms to wear. We are told when we can upgrade or downgrade from jackets to shirts. We are all in unison. Those black uniforms above with insignia are the jackets. Regulation shirts are worn under those. Nowhere on the Pershing's own official YouTube did they have the January 20, 2021, inauguration. Pershing's own U.S. Army Band YouTube channel. Army Pershing Band. 2013 Pershing Army Band. From Capitol to Military Funeral, full video. Military funeral for Biden at the Tomb of the Unknown. This crew cut the video off to make viewers think it kept going. Only 3 pieces of artillery, 2 firing, 1 for misfires. The firing of 3 volleys rounds over the graves of fallen armed forces members and political leaders can be traced to the European dynastic wars, when fighting was halted to remove the dead and wounded. This is not a 21-gun salute, nor any other type of gun salute. It's not the number of guns. It's the number of rounds fired that matters. Biden received 13 rounds fired, not a salute. This means number of guns recipients. 21 filled circle the President of the United States, former presidents and presidents-elect. Filled circle foreign heads of state, heads of government and reigning monarchs. 19 filled circle Vice President of the United States, Speaker of the House of Representatives, President pro tempore of the Senate, Chief Justice of the United States, members of the President's Cabinet. Filled circle governors of a U.S. state, the Secretary of Defense, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Army, the Secretary of the Navy, the Secretary of the Air Force, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Chief of Staff of the Army, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, the Chief of Naval Operations, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, the Chief of Space Operations. Filled circle General of the Army, Fleet Admiral or General of the Air Force and ambassadors, high commissioners, and others whose credentials are at least equivalent to those of an ambassador. 17 filled circle Governor General or Governor of a territory, Commonwealth, or possession of the United States or an area under U.S. administration, Committee of Congress, Assistant Secretaries of Defense, General Counsel of the Department of Defense, Under Secretaries of the Army, Navy, or Air Force. Filled circle Admiral, General. 15 filled circle Envoy Extraordinary and Minister Plenipotentiary. Filled circle Vice Admiral, Lieutenant General. 13 Minister Resident, Rear Admiral RADM, Major General. 11 filled circle Chargé d'Affaires, Consul General, Consul, or Vice Consul when in charge of a Consulate General. Filled circle Brigadier General, Rear Admiral Lower Half RDML. 7 consuls accredited to the U.S. vice consuls when in charge of a consulate. 5 vice consuls and consular agents. Army Study Guide. AL Salutes and Honors. SHTML. Well, he sure isn't a rear admiral or a major general, not to mention the song played for Biden was honors March 1st, not 2, 3 or 4, therefore he is a minister resident. A government official required to take up permanent residence in another country. A representative of his government, he officially has diplomatic functions which are often seen as a form of indirect rule. The District of Columbia became its own territory, not a city or state, defined as a foreign territory aka another country by United States law. So that makes sense that he's a resident in his own country.